Number 1. Khalil Wheeler-Weaver. In September 2016, firefighters responded to a structure fire at an abandoned house on Lakeside Avenue in Orange, New Jersey. The blaze itself appeared unremarkable until crews discovered human remains inside the charred building. The identity could not be immediately confirmed. It took investigators nearly 2 weeks to match dental records to Robin West, a 19-year-old woman from Philadelphia who had been reported missing days earlier. Khalil Wheeler-Weaver grew up in Seven Oaks, a well-established neighborhood in Orange. He came from a family with ties to law enforcement. His stepfather worked as a detective in East Orange, and his uncle had retired from the Newark Police Department. During his years at Orange High School, Wheeler-Weaver kept to himself. He participated in few extracurricular activities and maintained a small social circle. Classmates described him as quiet and unremarkable, often wearing tucked-in shirts and khaki pants that suggested a structured upbringing. After graduating in 2014, he took a position as a security guard with Sterling Securities, working shifts at a hotel and a grocery store. His phone search history indicated interest in becoming a police officer. Those who encountered him during his security work described him as calm and helpful. Wheeler-Weaver used the social networking platform, tagged to arrange meetings with women throughout late 2016. Communications retrieved from the platform showed he used multiple usernames and offered payment for services. On August 31st, Robin West was observed entering a vehicle in Philadelphia. Her remains were located in the abandoned Orange residence after the fire on September 1st. 6 weeks later, on October 22nd, Joanne Brown left an area near a fast food restaurant in Newark after using someone else's phone to make a call. She told the person on the line she would return within an hour. On December 5th, construction workers preparing a contract at an abandoned house on Highland Avenue in Orange discovered Brown's body inside. A jacket had been positioned around her face and neck. Sarah Butler, a 20-year-old student at New Jersey City University, spent Thanksgiving week at home with family. On November 22nd, she borrowed her mother's van, telling her she would return shortly. Surveillance footage from a convenience store captured someone exiting Butler's mother's van and entering the store while Butler remained inside the vehicle. Butler did not return home. Her body was later located at Eagle Rock Reservation in West Orange. Sarah Butler's friends accessed her tagged account after she disappeared. They observed records of communication between Butler and an account user. Rather than immediately contacting authorities, they created a fictitious profile and arranged a meeting at a Panera Bread restaurant in Montclair. When the individual arrived, police were present and conducted an interview. He was not detained at that time. Nearly 1 week passed before an arrest occurred on December 6th in Maplewood. A fourth woman, identified in court records by initials, had survived an encounter in November. She testified that she met someone through Tagged who offered payment. During their time together, she lost consciousness after being struck. When she regained awareness, she was restrained and being harmed. She convinced the individual to drive her back to her motel by claiming she had left her phone inside. Once in the room, she locked the door and contacted emergency services. Responding officers did not initially accept her account. Investigators obtained Wheeler-Weaver's cellular phone using a device created by NASA called the Zephyr machine, which allowed data extraction without the password. Digital evidence placed his phone at locations where the women disappeared and where remains were discovered. A fingerprint recovered from Farver's abandoned vehicle matched Wheeler-Weaver, when the surviving witness provided testimony describing an attack that matched patterns observed in the other cases. Wheeler-Weaver's phone contained searches, including methods to create harmful substances and techniques for body disposal. Wheeler-Weaver was charged with 3 counts of murder: attempted murder, aggravated sexual assault, aggravated arson, kidnapping, and desecration of remains. His trial began in 2019. Prosecutors presented digital forensic evidence, cellular tower data, witness testimony, and search history records. The defense maintained that Wheeler-Weaver had been framed. In December 2019, a jury returned guilty verdicts on all 11 charges after deliberation. Wheeler-Weaver denied responsibility in a brief statement before sentencing. The court heard impact statements from family members of the victims. And Wheeler-Weaver received a sentence of 160 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 145 years. In March 2022, while incarcerated, he was charged with an additional count of first-degree murder related to 15-year-old Mawa Dumbia, whose remains were discovered in an abandoned Orange residence in 2019. Her disappearance dated to October 2016. An appeal of the original convictions was denied in January 2024. The appellate court determined the sentence was justified by the nature of the offenses and affirmed that digital and physical evidence supported the verdict. The case demonstrated how friends of a victim used the same platform that facilitated the crimes to assist in identification and apprehension. Number 2, Jessie Kempson. On December 2, 2018, young parents in England sent birthday wishes to their daughter, traveling in New Zealand. When no response arrived by the following day, they grew concerned. Grace Millane had maintained regular contact throughout her gap year travels, sending photographs and messages about her experiences. 3 days after her 22nd birthday, her parents reported her missing to Auckland authorities. Grace Emmy Rose Millane was born on December 2, 1996, and grew up in Essex, England. She completed her education at the University of Lincoln, earning a degree in advertising and marketing earlier that year. Her family described her as adventurous and communicative. After graduation, she planned an extended journey to explore different countries. She spent 6 weeks in South America before arriving in New Zealand on November 20th. Her itinerary included travel around the Upper North Island. She reached Auckland on November 30th and checked into the City Life Hotel on Queen Street. Throughout her trip, she documented her experiences through photographs and regular messages to family members. On the evening of December 1st, Millane met someone for drinks after connecting on Tinder. Security cameras recorded the pair at multiple locations throughout central Auckland. Footage showed them at a bar on Victoria Street at 9 p.m., then at Sky City 15 minutes later. At 9:41 p.m., cameras captured them entering the elevator at the City Life Hotel. The individual she met was staying at the hotel. The following morning, her parents sent birthday greetings that went unanswered. By December 5th, authorities had opened a missing person investigation. Police retraced Millane's movements using security footage from restaurants and the hotel. The footage revealed the identity of her companion, who had posted a comment on her Facebook page the same evening. Investigators approached him for an initial interview. He stated that he and Millane had separated around 10 p.m. after their date, and he had not seen her since. Security camera evidence contradicted this account. A second formal interview occurred on December 8th. During this conversation, he acknowledged being with Millane, but claimed her death occurred accidentally during consensual activity. His phone records showed searches conducted in the hours following her death. These searches included terms related to the Waitakere Ranges and methods of body disposal. He also viewed adult content during this period. On December 8th, he rented a vehicle. Tracking data for the rental car showed travel to an area west of Auckland. On December 9th, search teams located Millane's body in the Waitakere Ranges, approximately 19 kilometers from central Auckland. Her remains had been placed inside a suitcase and buried in a shallow grave near Scenic Drive. A post-mortem examination was conducted on December 10th. He was taken into custody on December 8th at 3 p.m. while staying at the City Life Hotel. He appeared in Auckland District Court on December 10th, charged with murder. Additional investigations of the burial site occurred on December 11th. Authorities requested public assistance in locating a shovel believed connected to the case. A shovel matching the description was recovered on December 13th. The trial commenced on November 4th, 2019, at Auckland High Court. He entered a not guilty plea. Crown Solicitor Brian Dickey presented evidence that Millane had been strangled during their encounter. The prosecution introduced security footage showing his movements after Millane's death, including renting carpet cleaning equipment at a Countdown supermarket on Key Street. Digital evidence revealed internet searches for body disposal methods. 3 women who had also met him through Tinder testified about his preferences during intimate encounters. The defense argued that Millane's death occurred accidentally during consensual activity. After a 3-week trial, the jury deliberated for approximately 5 hours before returning a unanimous guilty verdict on November 22, 2019. During the legal proceedings, New Zealand courts imposed name suppression, preventing media outlets within the country from publishing his identity. Some international publications chose to disregard this order. Several individuals and entities were investigated for breaching the suppression order. On February 21, 2020, he received a sentence of life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Justice Simon Moore described the actions as demonstrating a lack of empathy and sense of entitlement. The court determined Millane had been particularly vulnerable. He filed an appeal against the conviction. On December 18, 2020, New Zealand's Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal. The justices noted the murder was committed with a high degree of callousness, referencing his failure to summon assistance, his internet searches, and his continuation of normal activities while Millane's body remained in his room. On December 22, 2020, the Supreme Court rejected his final appeal for continued name suppression. At that time, it was disclosed that he had been convicted in 2 additional trials in 2020 for sexual violence offenses against other women, including cases involving contacts made through Tinder. These convictions occurred independently of the Millane case. The case prompted discussions about the rough sex defense in criminal proceedings and led to legislative reviews in multiple jurisdictions. Number 3, Liz Golyer. Between November 2012 and late 2015, a man in Omaha, Nebraska, received tens of thousands of text messages and emails from someone he had dated for only 2 weeks. The messages ranged from affectionate to threatening. His phone number changed multiple times, yet the communications continued. The volume and persistence suggested an obsessive pattern. But digital forensic analysis would eventually reveal the messages originated from a different source than initially believed. Shanna Elizabeth Golyar met Dave Krupa through an online dating platform in mid-2012. She was a single mother living in the Omaha area. Krupa informed her from the beginning that he sought only casual arrangements and was seeing other people. Golyar expressed acceptance of these terms. She worked various jobs and maintained a residence where she lived with her children. Those who knew her during this period described routine interactions without notable concerns. Her social media activity appeared consistent with typical usage patterns. In early November 2012, Cari Farver came to Krupa's auto repair shop for vehicle service. Krupa and Farver began seeing each other. On November 9th or 10th, Farver's Ford Explorer was vandalized with spray paint while parked in Macedonia, Iowa. Investigators later discovered that a Facebook account created under a false identity claimed to be in Macedonia during that time frame and had attempted to connect with Farver online. On November 12th, Farver stayed overnight at Krupa's apartment. On the morning of November 13th, Krupa left for work. Farver remained at the apartment. That morning represented the last confirmed sighting of Farver by anyone other than the individuals later charged in the case. Within hours, Krupa began receiving text messages purportedly from Farver. Such the messages indicated she was leaving and did not wish to continue their relationship. Text messages and emails continued for weeks, then months. The content escalated from explanatory to hostile. Golyar also began receiving messages that appeared to come from Farver, including threats. Krupa's ex-girlfriend received communications as well. Farver's mother, Nancy Rainey, received messages from accounts claiming to be her daughter. Farver's vehicle was located abandoned in Omaha on January 10, 2013. A fingerprint recovered from the vehicle did not match Farver. In December 2015, Golyar reported being shot in the leg. She told authorities that the shooter was Krupa's ex-wife, Amy Flora, and suggested Flora had been impersonating Farver. Investigators received emails purportedly from Flora containing a confession to harming Farver. A digital forensic examination traced these emails to Golyar. In February 2016, detectives from Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office contacted the Omaha Police Department Cold Case Unit for assistance. Sergeant Jim Doty and Special Deputy Anthony Cava began reviewing the original case materials and analyzing downloaded phone contents from 2013. Forensic examination revealed that Golyar had been sending messages while positioning herself physically near Krupa, creating the illusion that Farver was the sender. Cava estimated Golyar spent 40 to 50 hours per week managing the impersonation scheme. She used applications and digital proxies to conceal IP addresses, complicating efforts to trace the activity to her location. As investigators worked the case, Krupa provided them with a tablet he had owned since 2012. Cava located a memory card in the device that had also been present in Golyar's phone during the period when Farver disappeared. Examination of the card revealed thousands of deleted image thumbnails. Among these images was a photograph of a human foot bearing a tattoo of a Chinese character. Rainey confirmed her daughter had an identical tattoo on her foot. A medical examiner determined the foot in the photograph belonged to a deceased individual. Investigators also discovered Golyar had sent a photograph to Rainey showing a check, purportedly signed by someone named Shanna Golyar, for furniture Farver had allegedly sold. Additional evidence included blood discovered on a seat cushion from Farver's vehicle. Golyar was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and second-degree arson in December 2016. The arson charge related to a fire at Golyar's residence. She pleaded not guilty. The case proceeded to a bench trial rather than a jury trial. Prosecutors presented digital forensic evidence, the photograph of the foot, blood evidence, and testimony about the elaborate impersonation scheme. The state's theory held that Golyar had created thousands of emails, texts, and social media posts while posing as Farver and others. Defense attorney James Martin Davis argued the state lacked sufficient evidence without a body, autopsy, murder weapon, or eyewitnesses. In May 2017, Douglas County District Judge Timothy Burns reviewed the evidence. He determined Golyar had engaged in a twisted scheme of lies, deceit, and digital impersonation to maintain the appearance that Farver remained alive. Burns concluded that Farver did not voluntarily disappear. The judge found Golyar guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree arson. Golyar received a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the murder conviction and a consecutive term of 18 to 20 years for arson. She filed an appeal challenging the sufficiency of the evidence. In 2018, the Nebraska Supreme Court reviewed the case. The court found overwhelming circumstantial evidence supported the conviction despite the absence of Farver's body. The justices noted the confession emails Golyar had written while impersonating others, the photograph of the tattooed foot, and the extensive digital trail. The Supreme Court affirmed the conviction and sentence. Golyar remains incarcerated. Yet the case established precedent for prosecuting homicides based primarily on digital forensic evidence and demonstrated the evidentiary value of metadata, IP address tracking, and device analysis in complex investigations. Number 4. Brandon Clark. On the morning of July 14, 2019, multiple calls reached Oneida County Emergency Dispatch in New York from locations across the country. Callers reported that disturbing images had been posted to a social media platform along with text indicating someone had been harmed. The first call originated from Tennessee. A person viewing content on Discord had observed photographs accompanied by identifying information including a name and the city of Utica. Similar reports followed from other jurisdictions within minutes. Bianca Michelle Devins was born on October 2, 2001, and lived in Utica, New York. She graduated from Thomas R. Proctor High School in June 2019 and planned to attend Mohawk Valley Community College in the fall to study psychology. Throughout her teenage years, Bianca managed mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. She had received treatment at medical facilities on multiple occasions. Family members described her as creative and talented. She maintained an active presence on social media platforms, including Instagram, Discord, and others. Online, she connected with communities where she found acceptance. She created content and built a following. Some individuals who interacted with her online were referred to as orbiters, a term describing people who followed and engaged with her posts regularly. Her struggles with mental health and experiences with online harassment had been ongoing for at least 2 years prior to July 2019. Brandon Andrew Clark was born on October 6, 1997. He experienced trauma during childhood, including witnessing domestic violence. By 2019, he worked as a driver for a rideshare service. In May 2019, Clark and Devins met through Instagram. They developed a relationship, though their characterizations of its nature differed. Devins's family considered Clark a close family friend. Others expressed concerns about the dynamic between them. Clark was 21 years old and Devins was 17. On July 13, 2019, Devins, Clark, and a mutual friend attended a concert in New York City featuring a performer Devins admired. Following the performance, Clark and Devins began the drive back to Utica, and during the return trip, a disagreement developed between them. The argument appeared related to interactions Devins had with others at the concert. At some point during the early morning hours of July 14th, Devins fell asleep in the vehicle. Clark had concealed a knife near his seat. While Devins was in the car, she was attacked with the weapon. The assault occurred on Poe Street in Utica. Investigators later determined the attack took place inside the vehicle. Shortly after 7 a.m., emergency dispatch received numerous calls. Some callers reported images they had seen posted on Discord. Clark also contacted emergency services. During his call, he identified himself by name and provided Devins's name as the victim. He stated he did not intend to remain on the line long because he still needed to complete the suicide portion of what he described as a murder-suicide. Members of Discord who had viewed the posted content had immediately contacted authorities. The images showed Devins and included a caption directed at others who followed her online. When officers arrived at the Poe Street location, they observed Clark. As an officer approached, Clark began harming himself with a knife, inflicting injuries to his neck. He positioned himself across a green tarp on the ground. An officer noticed hair visible from beneath the tarp and inquired about Devins's location. Clark indicated she was under the tarp. He then retrieved his phone and took photographs of himself positioned across the tarp. Officers engaged with Clark and took him into custody after a brief struggle. He was transported to a medical facility for treatment of his injuries. Devins's body was located beneath the tarp. She had sustained fatal injuries to her neck. A suicide note and additional messages were found at the scene. Images of Devins that Clark had posted began circulating rapidly across multiple social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The widespread distribution of the photographs caused significant distress to Devins's family and community. Social media companies worked to remove the content, but the images continued to reappear as users re-uploaded them. Some individuals posted the photographs mockingly, while others expressed sympathy. Devins's family received harassing messages, and authorities confirmed the authenticity of the images, but worked with platforms to address their distribution. Clark was charged with second-degree murder on July 15, 2019. He appeared in court and entered a not guilty plea. Prosecutors noted that Clark had possession of equipment that could record video and had conducted internet searches about locating specific anatomical structures and methods to incapacitate someone. These searches occurred prior to July 14th. In February 2020, Clark entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder. Several months later, he filed a motion claiming his attorney had coerced him into making the plea. He was assigned new legal representation in August and formally requested to withdraw the guilty plea. A judge reviewed the motion and denied the withdrawal request, allowing the original guilty plea to stand. Clark was sentenced in March 2021. He received a term of 25 years to life in prison. During the sentencing hearing, members of Devins's family addressed the court. Her mother described the impact of losing her daughter and the ongoing trauma caused by the circulation of the images online. The judge acknowledged the severity of the crime and the harm caused to the family and community. Clark must serve the minimum 25-year term before becoming eligible for consideration for parole. The case prompted discussions about the responsibility of social media platforms in preventing the spread of violent content and the psychological impact of such distribution on victims' families. Vigils were held in Devins's memory, and counseling services were offered to students at her former high school. The Adirondack Bank Center in Utica was illuminated in her honor. Number 5. Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail. On December 4th, 2017, individuals traveling along rural gravel roads in Clay County, Nebraska, observed black plastic garbage bags scattered in ditches approximately 90 miles southwest of Lincoln. The bags appeared to have been discarded recently. Authorities were contacted. Initial examination revealed human remains inside the bags. The discovery prompted an immediate homicide investigation. Law enforcement had been searching for a missing person from Lincoln for nearly 3 weeks. Sydney Irene Loofe was born on August 21st, 1993, in Broken Bow, Nebraska. She spent her early years in Arcadia before her family relocated to Neeley around 2000. During her school years, Sydney participated in basketball and golf until scoliosis limited her ability to continue with athletics. She graduated from Nellie Oakdale High School in 2011 and secured employment at a Menards store in Lincoln, where she worked as a clerk. Family members described her as skilled at fishing and engaged in outdoor activities. In the days before her disappearance, Sydney had discussed concerns about her mental health with relatives. Her family scheduled a medical appointment to address anxiety and depression. They drove her to the appointment. This represented the final time her family saw her. Sydney lived in an apartment in Lincoln and maintained regular contact with friends and relatives. Then Sydney connected with someone on Tinder in mid-November 2017. They arranged to meet on November 14th. The initial meeting occurred at a basement apartment that had been rented for 6 months in Wilbur, Nebraska. On November 15th, Sydney prepared for a second meeting. Before departing her apartment, she posted an image to Snapchat with a caption indicating she was ready for her date. She left her residence that evening. Cellular tower data showed phone signals traveling from Sydney's rental location toward Wilbur. Sydney's phone last transmitted a signal in Wilbur before the device powered off at 8:32 p.m. On November 16th, Sydney failed to report for her scheduled shift at Menards. Her mother attempted to reach her through text messages but received no response. Sydney's mother reported her missing. On November 17th, police conducted a welfare check at Sydney's apartment. She was not present. Her vehicle, eyeglasses, and personal belongings remained at the residence. Her cat had not been fed. No evidence of a disturbance was observed inside the apartment. Sydney's friends became concerned and worked to identify the person she had been meeting. One friend systematically reviewed profiles on Tinder until locating a profile matching descriptions Sydney had provided. The friend initiated contact and received a phone number in response. This information was provided to investigators. Within 2 days, Saline County authorities identified a Wilbur address as the location where Sydney's phone had last transmitted signals. Officers conducted a welfare check at the residence, but received no answer when knocking. Using the landlord's access, police entered the apartment. A strong odor of bleach was detected throughout the space. The property owner had complained about the smell days earlier, noting it was severe enough to cause physical reactions in family members. Air conditioning was running in the residence, despite cold November temperatures. Surveillance footage from a home improvement store showed 2 individuals purchasing saws, cutting tools, bleach, roasting pans, and trash bags on November 15th, before Sydney's date. Sydney was alive and at work during the time these items were purchased. Additional receipts confirmed the purchases occurred hours before Sydney disappeared. Between December 4th and the following days, investigators located 14 separate bags containing human remains along rural roads in the Edgar area. Some bags were found in different locations, scattered across the countryside. A post-mortem examination determined the remains were those of Sydney Loofe. Cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Evidence indicated she had been dismembered after death. Several of Sydney's organs, including her heart, were not recovered. Cell phone data placed 2 individuals in proximity to Sydney's last known location and along the routes where remains were discovered. Investigators identified Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail as persons of interest. Shortly after Sydney's disappearance, Boswell and Trail recorded a video statement posted to Facebook, maintaining their innocence. In the video, Boswell claimed she and Sydney had used controlled substances at her residence before she dropped Sydney at a friend's location. And she stated they had planned to visit a casino that weekend, but had lost contact. The basement apartment where the 2 lived showed signs of a rapid departure. All personal belongings had been removed. Bailey Boswell was arrested in March 2019. Aubrey Trail was arrested in April 2019. Both were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and improper disposal of human remains. Trail's trial commenced in June 2019. During a hearing, Trail unexpectedly produced a razor and inflicted wounds to his own neck while in the courtroom. He was hospitalized and missed portions of his trial. Prosecutors presented evidence including store receipts, surveillance footage, digital communications, cellular tower data, and testimony from witnesses who stated that Boswell and Trail had discussed desires to harm others. Trail initially claimed Sydney's death was accidental during intimate activity. He later stated he strangled her because she threatened to expose their lifestyle. The jury found Trail guilty on all charges in July 2019. Boswell's trial occurred in October 2020. The prosecution presented similar evidence and argued Boswell had lured Sydney to facilitate a planned killing. Boswell's defense maintained she had been coerced by Trail. The jury convicted Boswell of all charges. In June 2021, a 3-judge panel sentenced Trail to death. Trail showed minimal emotion during sentencing and stated he did not care about the court's decision. His death sentence was affirmed on appeal in November 2022. In November 2021, a 3-judge panel sentenced Boswell to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. 2 judges voted for a death sentence, but Nebraska law requires unanimous agreement. One judge dissented, preventing a death sentence. Both convictions were upheld on appeal. Trail remains on death row. Boswell is incarcerated at the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women. The case established that digital evidence and retail transaction records could support murder convictions even when planning occurred before victim selection. Number 6. Joshua Stimson. On the morning of June 29, 2017, a man approached a vehicle in a car park at the Dockside Outlet Shopping Center in Chatham, Kent. He observed an altercation occurring inside the car and attempted to intervene. Despite his efforts to stop what was happening, he was unable to prevent the outcome. Emergency services were contacted immediately. It's just the witness who tried to help would later be recognized by the victim's family for his actions that morning. Molly McLaren was born on June 26, 1994, in Kent, England. She grew up in the area and attended local schools. During her teenage years, Molly experienced challenges with anxiety and bulimia. She worked to address these difficulties and became passionate about promoting self-acceptance and positive body image. In 2015, she enrolled at the University of Kent to study exercise, sport, and health education. She embraced student life actively, joining societies and participating in sports clubs. Molly started a fitness blog where she shared motivational content and workout videos. Her friends described her as kind-hearted and energetic. She worked as a fitness instructor and maintained close relationships with family members. Her social media presence reflected her interests in health, fitness, and encouraging others. In July 2016, Molly joined Tinder and connected with Joshua Stimson. The two communicated through the app for approximately 3 months before meeting in person in November 2016. Stimson was 26 years old and worked in warehouse operations and double glazing installation. He had grown up in Stoke-on-Trent, but was living in Woodham, Kent at the time. During early conversations, they discovered shared experiences with anxiety and mental health challenges. For Molly, this represented her first serious relationship. They dated for several months. In March 2017, Molly decided to end the relationship. They separated briefly, but resumed dating until June 17th, when Molly informed Stimson the relationship was over permanently. Yet following the final separation, Stimson posted derogatory messages about Molly on Facebook. The posts falsely claimed she had been using controlled substances. He added comments indicating more content would follow. Molly reported the online harassment to police. Officers contacted Stimson twice and warned him to cease contact with Molly or face potential prosecution. On June 27th, security cameras recorded Stimson purchasing a kitchen knife at an Asda store in Chatham. 30 minutes later, additional footage showed him buying a pickaxe at a nearby home base location. On the morning of June 29th, Molly went to Pure Gym at the Dockside Shopping Complex. Stimson arrived at the gym shortly after Molly and positioned his exercise equipment near hers. Molly sent a text message to her mother describing the situation, and then placed a phone call. Her mother advised her to leave immediately and go directly home. Molly walked to her Citroen vehicle in the car park. Stimson followed her to the parking area. Once Molly was inside her car, Stimson approached the vehicle. Benjamin Morton observed the situation developing and moved toward the car in an attempt to stop what was occurring. He tried to pull Stimson away and even attempted to slam the car door on Stimson's leg to halt the attack. Despite his intervention efforts, he could not prevent the violence. Stimson inflicted at least 75 stab wounds on Molly, repeatedly slashing her neck and throat. The attack was described by witnesses as frenzied and relentless. Emergency services arrived at the scene. Medical personnel attempted treatment, but Molly was pronounced deceased at the location. Mae Stimson was taken into custody at the scene. The knife used in the attack was recovered from inside the vehicle. The pickaxe purchased from home base was located in Stimson's car. During the investigation, authorities learned that Stimson had demonstrated similar behavior patterns in previous relationships. He had stalked at least 2 other women he had dated. In 2013, while living in Stoke-on-Trent, a woman reported concerning behavior after they went on a date. The matter was reported to Staffordshire Police. Messages were not recorded as criminal incidents, and Stimson was not formally cautioned. When he relocated to Kent, information about the 2013 incident was not transferred to Kent Police. Stimson was charged with murder. He entered a plea of guilty to manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility, claiming he suffered from a personality disorder. He denied the charge of murder. His trial commenced at Maidstone Crown Court in early 2018. The prosecution presented evidence including CCTV footage of the knife and pickaxe purchases, testimony from witnesses, digital records of the Facebook posts, and documentation of police warnings. Medical professionals testified about Stimson's mental health history. The defense argued that his mental state met the criteria for diminished responsibility. The jury of 8 men and 4 women deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a unanimous verdict of guilty of murder, rejecting the manslaughter plea. On February 7, 2018, Judge Adele Williams sentenced Stimson to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years before eligibility for parole consideration. When the judge stated the act was cruel, calculated, and cowardly. She described Stimson as wicked and noted he sought revenge for the relationship ending. The court heard that Stimson posed a considerable risk to women for a substantial period. Judge Williams indicated he might never be released from custody. Following the sentencing, Molly's family released a statement calling for greater awareness about the dangers of stalking and the importance of reporting concerns to authorities. A domestic homicide review was later conducted, which identified failures in how Stimson's case had been handled by various agencies in 2013 and recommended improvements in information sharing between police forces. The Molly McLaren Foundation was established to raise awareness about eating disorders and to provide funding for support services, honoring Molly's commitment to helping others. Number 7. Kelsey Turner. On March 7, 2019, a missing person report was filed in California when a 71-year-old psychiatrist failed to board his scheduled return flight. The individual who reported him missing was his longtime girlfriend, who had last spoken with him while he was visiting Las Vegas. He had told her during that conversation that he needed to verify something himself because he had been repeatedly deceived. When he did not arrive at the airport and could not be reached, the report was submitted to authorities. Thomas Kirk Burchard was born in 1948 and established himself as a highly regarded child psychiatrist practicing in Salinas, California. He had built a respected career over decades, providing psychiatric care to young patients and their families. His colleagues described him as dedicated to his work. Burchard had been married previously and had adult children. In the years leading up to 2019, he was in a relationship with Judy Earp, who had relocated from Orange County to Salinas to live with him. They shared a home in the area. Those who knew Burchard described him as generous, but noted he had developed patterns of providing financial assistance to individuals he met through online platforms. Burchard met Kelsey Turner through online communication at some point prior to 2019. Turner was 25 years old and presented herself as a model. Her photographs appeared on websites for publications including Playboy Italia and Maxim. On social media, she used the name Bad Barbie and posted content related to modeling, events, and her lifestyle. Turner had a young son and had previously lived in Arkansas before relocating to California. Burchard began providing financial support to Turner, which included paying rent on properties where she lived. Initially, Turner resided in a house in the Salinas area that Burchard funded. The arrangement continued for a period of time. Earp became aware of the situation and expressed concerns about the relationship. She observed that Burchard appeared fixated on Turner and was providing substantial monetary support. Earp eventually insisted that Burchard end the financial arrangement. Following her urging, Burchard stopped paying Turner's rent in Salinas and took back a vehicle he had provided. He gave Turner money to relocate to Las Vegas permanently. Despite the intended separation, Burchard resumed providing financial support. He supplied Turner with a Mercedes-Benz to replace the previous vehicle and began paying rent on a 4-bedroom house in Las Vegas for Turner and her son. Turner did not inform Burchard of everyone residing in the property. Along with Turner's son, the house included Diana Pena and another individual. Turner shared the master bedroom with John Logan Kennison, a 27-year-old man she had met in early 2019. Kennison had previous involvement with criminal organizations. On March 1st, 2019, Burchard traveled to Las Vegas and went to Turner's residence. Multiple people were present at the house when he arrived. During his visit, Turner became upset after reviewing messages on Burchard's phone. She discovered communications between Burchard and her mother that referenced potentially removing Turner's children from her care. An argument developed. The disagreement continued as Turner, Burchard, and others traveled in a vehicle. Upon returning to the house, the confrontation escalated. Turner made threats about contacting Burchard's employer with unfounded accusations. Burchard appeared confused by Turner's reaction and repeatedly stated he cared about her. Pena removed Turner's young son from the residence as the situation intensified. Burchard went upstairs to her room. Kennison went upstairs, forced entry through the door, and began striking Burchard with a baseball bat. The attack continued. Burchard sustained severe head trauma. On March 7th, a caller contacted emergency services to report an abandoned vehicle on a dirt road near Lake Mead, outside Las Vegas. Officers responded to the location and discovered a Mercedes-Benz. In the trunk contained human remains. The vehicle was registered to Turner. A post-mortem examination conducted the following day revealed Burchard had died from blunt force trauma to the head. Photographs taken during the examination showed extensive injuries. Law enforcement traced the vehicle ownership and identified Turner as a person of interest. Detectives learned that Burchard had been reported missing by Earp after he failed to return to California. Investigation revealed that Turner and others had departed the Las Vegas residence abruptly after March 1st. The landlord reported that all belongings had been removed from the property. Turner was located and arrested in Stockton, California, on March 21st. Peña turned herself into authorities and provided detailed testimony about events at the residence on March 1st and 2nd. She described witnessing Kennison attack Burchard and stated she saw Kennison covered in blood. Kennison was arrested on April 17th in Las Vegas. Evidence presented to a grand jury included Peña's testimony, store receipts showing purchases of tools before Burchard's visit, surveillance footage, and forensic analysis linking the scene to the crime. Turner, Kennison, and Peña were charged. Peña pleaded guilty to accessory to murder in June 2019 and received a reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation. Kennison's case proceeded first. In June 2022, Kennison pleaded guilty to second-degree murder with a deadly weapon and conspiracy to commit murder. In July 2022, he was sentenced to 18 to 45 years in prison. Kennison's attorneys characterized the attack as a crime of passion and described Turner as manipulative. Turner's case continued. In November 2022, Turner accepted an Alford plea to second-degree murder. The plea allowed her to maintain she did not commit the acts, while acknowledging prosecutors possessed sufficient evidence for conviction. The plea agreement specified a negotiated sentence. On January 10, 2023, Turner appeared before Judge Carly Kearney for sentencing. Earp addressed the court and stated Turner had forged Burchard's signature, stolen money, and lured him to Las Vegas under false pretenses. Earp estimated Turner had taken over $300,000 from Burchard through various means. When Chief Deputy District Attorney Pamela Weckerly presented evidence of Turner's involvement in the events leading to Burchard's death. Turner was tearful but did not make a statement. Judge Kearney sentenced Turner to 10 to 25 years in prison. Turner became eligible for parole consideration after serving 10 years. She was also ordered to pay restitution for legal costs. Turner was transferred to a correctional facility to begin serving her sentence. The case highlighted vulnerabilities that can arise when financial support relationships develop through online platforms and the potential for exploitation in such arrangements. Number 8. Jack Seppel. On the morning of February 1st, 2022, a resident in Chelmsford, Essex, heard a woman screaming from a neighboring property on Tennyson Road. Such as the neighbor stepped outside and was approached by a young woman who appeared distressed. The woman stated she had been harmed and described concerning behavior including mistreatment of a pet. She indicated she believed her life was in danger. The neighbor spoke briefly with the woman's companion, who appeared calm and apologetic. The neighbor had a scheduled medical appointment and departed the residence at 9:30 a.m. Hours later, concerns from other parties would prompt emergency response to the same address. Ashley Wadsworth was born on July 25, 2002, and grew up in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. She was raised in a close family that included her parents, Kenneth Wadsworth and Christy Gendron, as well as her older sister Haley. Ashley was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And family members described her as kind, brave, and compassionate. During her teenage years, she developed interests in outdoor activities and travel. She had a strong moral foundation and maintained close relationships with relatives. After completing high school at W.L. Seton Secondary School, Ashley took a gap year to explore opportunities outside Canada. She documented her experiences through social media and maintained regular communication with family members throughout her travels. Ashley had known Jack Seppel since she was 12 years old, and he was 15. They met through a mutual friend online and communicated regularly over a 4-year period. Their contact was intermittent, with periods of more and less frequent communication. During the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, they resumed talking more consistently. In late 2021, Ashley decided to visit Seppel in England. Her family expressed some reservations about the trip, but Ashley was enthusiastic about the opportunity. She obtained a 6-month tourist visa and traveled to the United Kingdom, arriving shortly before Christmas in 2021. She moved to Chelmsford to stay with Seppel at his residence on Tennyson Road. Ashley posted photographs online showing visits to London landmarks and expressing excitement about her experiences. The couple purchased a kitten together named Winston. Jack Aidan Seppel was 23 years old and lived in Chelmsford, Essex. He had previous criminal convictions, including harassment and breaching restraining orders. His history included documented incidents involving former partners. 2 previous women he had dated reported concerning behavior patterns. Seppel had been subject to restraining orders related to these relationships. When Ashley arrived in the United Kingdom, she was unaware of the full extent of his criminal background. Background checks conducted from Canada had not revealed his conviction record. In the weeks following Ashley's arrival, the relationship began to show signs of difficulty. By late January 2022, Ashley had decided to return to Canada earlier than originally planned. She was scheduled to fly home on February 3rd. On the morning of February 1st, the neighbor heard Ashley scream and observed her outside. Ashley told the neighbor that Seppel had beaten her and thrown their kitten against a wall. Ashley stated Seppel was going to kill her. The neighbor spoke with Seppel, who appeared calm during the brief conversation. After the neighbor departed for an appointment at 9:30 a.m., the situation inside the residence deteriorated. Earlier that day, 2 of Ashley's friends received text messages indicating Ashley needed assistance and wanted to leave the property. The messages requested the friends come to the Tennyson Road address. Shortly afterward, additional messages stated the situation had been resolved. Concerned for their friends' safety, the 2 individuals traveled to the Chelmsford residence despite the follow-up messages. When they arrived, they heard movement inside the property, but received no response when they attempted to make contact. They decided to call emergency services. Police forced entry to the residence at 4:13 p.m. Officers discovered Seppel on a video call with his sister. He was showing her content on his phone screen. Ashley's body was located inside the residence. Seppel was arrested at the scene. He had recorded a video on his mobile phone shortly after the attack. The phone was covered in blood. In the video, Seppel appeared to address Ashley's sister Haley and stated he had gone into a disturbed state. He apologized and described his actions. Ashley's body was visible in the background of the recording. When officers arrived, Seppel told them the incident had occurred 2 to 3 hours earlier. He stated he had consumed a large quantity of substances. A kitchen knife was recovered from behind a radiator pipe in the living room. Blood was detected on Seppel's gaming console, indicating use of the device after Ashley's death. A post-mortem examination determined Ashley had been stabbed more than 90 times on her body. Bruising on her neck was consistent with strangulation. Seppel was charged with murder. He appeared at Colchester Magistrates Court on February 3, 2022, and was remanded to custody. The case was transferred to Chelmsford Crown Court. A trial date was initially scheduled for September 2022. During a preparation hearing on September 7th, Seppel entered a guilty plea to murder. A psychiatrist had determined he was fit to enter the plea. His barrister confirmed the defendant wished to admit guilt. Detective Superintendent Scott Egerton stated the evidence against Seppel was overwhelming and left few options other than to admit responsibility. On October 10, 2022, Seppel appeared before the Honorable Mr. Justice Murray for sentencing. Ashley's father, Kenneth, addressed the court. He stated he had experienced a negative feeling when Ashley left Canada but couldn't prevent her from going. He described missing everything about his daughter and broke down while speaking. Ashley's mother, Christy Gendron, read a prepared statement. She remembered Ashley's creativity and kindness as a child. She described how the holiday season would always be painful because of Ashley's absence. She stated she no longer experienced joy the same way and lived in constant fear and anxiety. She mentioned nightmares about Ashley's final moments and holding her daughter's cold hand at the funeral. Judge Murray described the attack as brutal and cowardly. He noted Seppel had inflicted approximately 90 wounds on Ashley's body gratuitously. When the judge stated Ashley had been vulnerable in a foreign country and had trusted Seppel, he referenced Seppel's criminal record showing a pattern of violent and controlling behavior toward women. Seppel received a sentence of life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years and 6 months, less 249 days already served in custody. He was also ordered to pay a victim surcharge. Ashley's family later advocated for greater awareness of Clare's Law, which allows individuals to request information from police about a partner's history of violence. They stated they wished they had known to utilize this resource before Ashley traveled to the United Kingdom. The case prompted discussions about protecting individuals in international relationships and the importance of background verification across jurisdictions. Number 9. Carl Langdell. On the morning of December 24, 2015, hotel staff at Theobald's Park Hotel in Cheshunt, Hertfordshire, responded to a room where a late checkout had been requested earlier that day. A Do Not Disturb sign had been placed on the door. When staff entered the room, they discovered all bedding and towels were missing from the premises. The window lock had been broken. The occupants who had checked in during the early morning hours were no longer present. The irregular condition of the room prompted notification to management. Katie Locke was born in 1992 and grew up in Buckhurst Hill, Essex, England. She attended Southampton University, where she earned a degree in history and politics. After completing her education, Katie secured a position as a history teacher at Cardinal Pole School in Hackney, East London. Her colleagues and students described her as dedicated and enthusiastic about her work. Outside of teaching, Katie enjoyed water sports and had spent time volunteering to work with underprivileged children. She had traveled to the United States for a period to participate in programs assisting young people. Her father, Bill, described her as self-confident, fearless, energetic, and reliable. Katie maintained close relationships with family members and friends. She was described as someone who lived life fully and was always willing to help others. During December 2015, Katie was exploring opportunities to meet new people and had joined the dating platform Plenty of Fish. Katie connected with Carl Langdell through Plenty of Fish in early December 2015. Langdell presented himself as an attorney who owned his own law firm. His LinkedIn profile indicated enrollment at law school. They communicated through the platform before arranging to meet in person. Langdell was 26 years old and lived in Cheshunt with his family. He had previously studied journalism at Hertfordshire University, but had not completed the degree program. On December 23rd, Katie and Langdell met at Traffic Bar in Shoreditch, East London. Katie sent a message to a friend earlier in the evening indicating the date was progressing well. The two consumed alcoholic beverages at the establishment. Langdell became significantly intoxicated during the evening. They departed the bar around 1:30 a.m. on December 24th and took a taxi to Theobald's Park Hotel. The taxi arrived at the hotel in the early morning hours. Isha, the receptionist on duty, later recalled that Langdell appeared very intoxicated and had difficulty maintaining balance. Katie supported Langdell as they walked toward their room because he was staggering. Later that morning, Langdell telephoned reception requesting a late checkout and paid for the extension using his debit card. He placed a Do Not Disturb sign on the exterior of the door. When Katie did not return home or respond to contact attempts on December 24th, her family became concerned. Her mother had been under the impression Katie was spending time with a friend named Rosie. Friends and family members began attempting to identify who Katie had been with the previous evening. They located Langdell through social media platforms and sent him messages asking about Katie's whereabouts. Langdell responded, stating that Katie had departed in a taxi and he did not know her current location. Katie's family continued their search for information and managed to determine where Langdell's family resided in Cheshunt. Katie's father traveled to the address. When he arrived, he learned that Langdell had telephoned his mother shortly before and confessed to killing someone. He referred to himself as a monster during the call. Katie's family immediately contacted authorities. Langdell was located on the morning of December 24th in Lee Valley Park, where he was walking his dog. He was taken into custody and charged with murder on December 25th, 2015. He directed officers to the location where Katie's body could be found, where her remains were discovered in bushes near a skip in the 55-acre grounds of Theobald's Park Hotel. A kitchen knife was recovered from behind a radiator pipe in the living room area. Langdell's mobile phone contained photographs he had taken of the scene. A post-mortem examination determined Katie's cause of death was compression of the neck, consistent with strangulation. Evidence also revealed that Langdell had engaged in sexual conduct with Katie's body after her death. Investigation revealed that Langdell was not an attorney and did not own a law firm. He had an extensive history of mental health treatment. Records showed he had been hospitalized for psychiatric care in September 2015 after threatening self-harm. During treatment, he made statements to mental health professionals about desires to harm women. In March 2015, he had told a nurse he wanted to kill and rape young women. 1 month later, he threatened to harm his girlfriend's sister and a community psychiatric nurse. He was arrested and charged with 2 counts of making threats to kill. At Bristol Crown Court in April 2015, he pleaded guilty, and sentencing was adjourned. He was granted bail with conditions, including wearing an electronic tag and residing at his parents' residence in Hertfordshire. On December 2nd, 2015, he appeared in court and received a suspended prison sentence for the threats. This occurred just 3 weeks before he met Katie. Conflicting psychiatric evaluations had influenced the judge's decision to suspend the sentence rather than impose immediate custody. Langdell entered a plea of guilty to manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility in claiming mental illness affected his actions. He denied the charge of murder. His trial proceeded at St. Albans Crown Court in June 2016. Prosecutor Ann Evans presented evidence of the events at the hotel and the circumstances of Katie's death. The court heard testimony about Langdell's mental health history and his pattern of threatening behavior toward women. Medical experts provided conflicting assessments of his mental state. Despite the defense argument of diminished responsibility, the jury determined the evidence supported a murder conviction. Judge Andrew Bright sentenced Langdell to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years before eligibility for parole consideration. The judge stated that the sexual conduct with Katie's body after her death increased the depravity of the offense. Detective Inspector Fraser Wiley described Langdell as a dangerous, evil, manipulative, and controlling individual who knew exactly what he was doing. Langdell was initially held at Rampton Hospital, a high-security psychiatric facility. In May 2019, he was transferred to HMP Wakefield in West Yorkshire. On February 11, 2021, Langdell was found in his cell at Wakefield with serious injuries to his throat. Staff attempted resuscitation, but he was pronounced deceased at age 30. An inquest conducted in 2021 and 2022 examined the circumstances of Langdell's death and also reviewed the handling of his case prior to Katie's murder. Assistant Coroner Allison McCormick concluded that multiple organizations managing Langdell had failed to share information with each other. She noted there was very little coordination between agencies including Avon and Somerset Police, Hertfordshire Police, Mental Health Services in Somerset and Hertfordshire, and the Probation Service. The review identified that if information had been properly shared between police forces when Langdell was bailed to Hertfordshire, and if subsequent threat reports had been acted upon promptly, there might have been opportunities to intervene before Katie's death. Katie's family released a statement emphasizing that no sentence would ease their pain and warning others about the dangers of online dating. They expressed hope that authorities would conduct serious investigations if Langdell were ever considered for release, though his death made that consideration unnecessary. Number 10. Danweel Drayton. On July 17, 2018, financial institutions flagged unusual activity on credit card accounts belonging to a registered nurse from Queens, New York. Charges appeared for purchases made in locations inconsistent with the cardholder's normal patterns. One transaction involved a plane ticket to California. When attempts to reach the cardholder for verification went unanswered, standard fraud prevention protocols were initiated. Meanwhile, family members who had been unable to establish contact grew concerned and went to check on her residence. Samantha Stewart was born in 1989 and worked as a registered nurse at North Shore University Hospital on Long Island. She was 29 years old and lived in an apartment on 145th Road in the Springfield Gardens neighborhood of Queens. Colleagues described her as professional and dedicated to patient care, where she maintained relationships with family members who lived in the area, including her father, Kenneth Stewart, and her brothers. Samantha had a routine schedule and was known for being reliable about maintaining communication with relatives. During the summer of 2018, she had been using the dating application Tinder to meet new people. Samantha connected with Daniel Drayton through Tinder in mid-July 2018. Drayton was 27 years old and presented himself favorably in online communications. He had previously lived in New Haven, Connecticut and Brooklyn, New York. His criminal history included convictions in Connecticut for strangulation, harassment, and violating protective orders. In 2013, he had been convicted of strangulation and unlawful restraint and sentenced to 5 years in prison for domestic abuse incidents that occurred in 2011 and 2012. At the time he met Samantha, he was out of custody following an arrest in Nassau County, New York, for allegedly choking a former girlfriend. He had been released without bail after a judge was not informed of his Connecticut conviction record. Samantha and Drayton arranged to meet on July 16, 2018. They went to a racetrack and shared an artichoke pizza before going to Samantha's apartment in Springfield Gardens that evening. On July 17th, Samantha did not report for her scheduled shift at the hospital. Family members attempted to contact her, but received no responses. Around 9 p.m., her brother went to her apartment to check on her welfare. When he entered the residence, he discovered Samantha's body in her bedroom. She was wrapped in a blanket and positioned on the floor. It appeared she had been strangled. Her tongue was visible, and her teeth had been knocked out. The brother immediately contacted their father, Kenneth, and then contacted emergency services. Investigators responded to the scene and began examining the circumstances. Evidence suggested Samantha had sustained blunt force trauma in addition to strangulation. The condition of the apartment indicated a violent struggle had occurred. Detectives began reviewing Samantha's recent activities and communications. They identified that she had been using Tinder and had recently met someone through the platform. Financial records showed unauthorized use of Samantha's credit cards following July 16th. One card had been used to purchase an airline ticket from New York to California. The transaction occurred shortly after the time frame investigators believed Samantha had died. Authorities traced the ticket purchase and determined it was for travel to Los Angeles. The New York Police Department Fugitive Task Force began tracking the individual who had used Samantha's credit card. On July 24th, 2018, task force members located Drayton at a hotel in North Hollywood, California. When officers entered the hotel room, they discovered another woman who was being held against her will. She was bound and showed signs of physical harm. Drayton was taken into custody immediately. The woman stated she had met Drayton through an Uber ride-sharing arrangement. They had gone to her apartment, where he had restrained and assaulted her over a period of time. He faced attempted murder and additional charges related to that incident in Los Angeles. Following his arrest, Drayton made statements to media outlets while in custody. He told the New York Daily News that he heard voices in his head that instructed him to harm people. He stated he remembered strangling Samantha Stewart. He claimed he really liked her and didn't want to kill her, but voices told him she had to die. He claimed to authorities that he was responsible for multiple murders. NYPD Chief of Detectives Dermot Shea announced that the common element in multiple cases was the use of dating websites. He stated that Drayton appeared to use these platforms to meet and then victimize women. Investigators in New York also connected Drayton to an unrelated assault case in Brooklyn involving a 23-year-old woman. Drayton remained in California custody, facing charges related to the woman held captive in the hotel. Legal proceedings in California were pending, while New York authorities worked on extradition. Years passed as the cases moved through different jurisdictions. On April 1, 2022, Drayton was extradited from California to New York. He was arraigned in Queens Supreme Court before Justice Kenneth Holder on an 18-count indictment. At the time of arraignment, Drayton was 31 years old. The charges included second-degree murder, sexual misconduct, grand larceny in the fourth degree, petite larceny, identity theft in the second and third degrees, unlawful possession of personal identification information in the third degree, and criminal possession of stolen property in the fourth degree. Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz addressed the charges at a press conference. She stated the case represented a brutal crime that created fear among people using dating applications. She characterized Samantha as having been deceived by someone who presented himself as charming online, but was allegedly a predator. Katz stated that after the killing, Drayton fled the state to escape prosecution. Prosecutors outlined the evidence, including forensic analysis from the apartment, credit card transaction records, and testimony about the timeline of events. The indictment alleged that Drayton beat and strangled Samantha and then engaged in sexual conduct with her deceased body. Justice Holder set the return date for May 23, 2022, and ordered Drayton held without bail. The case faces a maximum penalty of 25 years to life in prison if conviction occurs on the murder charge. Proceedings remain ongoing. Samantha's family attended court appearances and submitted statements about the impact of her death. Her father, Kenneth, spoke publicly about the devastation caused, describing the pain of imagining what his daughter endured in her final moments. He expressed relief that Drayton had been apprehended before, potentially harming additional victims. The case illustrated challenges in coordinating information across jurisdictions and the consequences when individuals with violent criminal histories remain in communities without adequate monitoring or restrictions.